And even if you comment hate, like you're adding to the algorithm for me. So you're adding to my power. I'm looking at your face, Bree. It's like, are you having a nice like blush like to your cheeks?
My down low cheeks are pretty good too.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Dirty Deets. My name is Bree Essrig. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, and I'm a sex worker. And today I have an incredible guest that I am so excited that we got in this, well, not in the studio, but remotely. Please welcome to the pod, Lea Salonganisa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. You are a sex worker, a drag queen, and a tarot card reader. What don't you do?
Yes. Anal. No, I'm just kidding, but that's not on the service list.
Wait,
but,
you don't? Okay.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats, so
I'm gonna check that
it's
off.
always, yeah, I'm always thinking like, what angle do I come in on? And so I'm like, okay, because yeah, I've had a lot of transformation the past few years as well, because I was doing sex work, went to grad school, started my art, started my spiritual practice, so it's just as confusing for you as it is for me.
Okay, great. But you're still the coolest, and I'm so excited that you're here. We have so much to talk about. Let's start with your background with sex work and drag. First of all, do you consider drag to be sex work? And what exactly is sex work to you?
Okay, those are amazing questions because, okay, so I mean, really, the tea is like I tweeted this a little bit back, but I really do bet that like 1 in 4 drag artists, so let's say like 25%, have probably been involved in like sex labor or like any other intimate work just in their lives. So the overlap is so common, and I feel like it's something no one really wants to talk about. And there's also that thing where like a lot of what I've really encountered is a lot of drag queens want to be auditionable for like a certain show, so they won't really talk about their involvement in sex work, or it's very hush hush. And I know many people who have that kind of story, but uh, so there is an overlap, and I do think drag is a form because there's just so much, interacting with the audience, just like embracing sexuality, embracing gender, playing with that. A lot of drag artists also do burlesque. There's so much blur, you know what I mean? And I mean, sex work to me is really anything that is that type of intimate way of connecting with people. It's not just like full service in-person sex work. It can also be like even writing erotica or like painting nudes, or like a lot of photographers I know do things that involve like naked bodies and sexuality. And to me, sex work is all that stuff, because when the censorship happens, it impacts everyone, not just like full service in person, online, porn stars, sex workers. It's all type of artists. So that's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I consider like influencing or modeling sex work also. You're totally selling your body. Even joining the military to me is, I mean, it's not sex work,
Yes,
but it is selling your body to the government, which is crazy.
exactly.
But that is like, it's such a broad term for so many different types of art. You're absolutely right. And the way I found you, and a lot of people would recognize you from your viral TikToks explaining CCIA, or the Stop Internet Exploitation Act. So for
Yes.
those who still don't quite understand what that is, could you just give us a little brief explanation of the bill and why you wanted to talk about it specifically, and why the government is trying to pass these types of bills and why they're doing more harm than good?
Oh, exactly. So CCIA was the Stop Internet Sexual Exploitation Act, and that was introduced on the floor of Congress last December by a bipartisan, Democrat and Republican senators, so Ben Sass and Jeff Merkley. And so the intention with those bills is always on the surface to like curb trafficking, to curb the presence of like child sexually abusive material, like CSAM online. But what the bills actually do is really target and disempower and prevent sex workers from accessing legal resources, from having the ability to make money and post content. And it really just censors the internet in very wide sweeps. And so a lot of people get pulled into that, a lot of artists, models, queer people, trans people, anybody who's like even oppressible, will be like swept into that and won't be able to form community or to have so much as any digital rights to their content. And so I hope that was a good explanation. You could always watch the TikToks to get more briefing on that. But definitely, the problem really is that these bills are widely supported, by Democrats and by Republicans because they are believed to stop trafficking, like much like Sesta Fosta before it, which actually now, a lot of more leftist senators, so Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, are introducing measures to investigate whether or not Sesta Fosta was effective. And the T is it's not, it wasn't. Like it actually increased a lot of violence, right? And so I wanted to talk about it because I'm really involved in art, in queer arts, and a lot of the people in my community I don't think knew about it or so much. They cared from like the point of view of like, yeah, sex worker friends won't make money, um, porn will disappear. That's kind of like how people mostly care about it. But I cared about it in terms of like, I mean, anything deemed pornographic under that bill can just be removed. And so even drag can get removed. And a lot of people didn't think about that. And luckily, we're at this point where like the bill has semi unofficially died. So it may or may not be reintroduced. But the thing that's scary right now is Joe Biden and a lot of other Republicans and Democrats are trying to repeal Section 230, which actually allows for sex workers to sell and have content online digitally, and to form, to access resources online. So the attack is still happening. You know what I mean? It's just a massive headache. So I'm gonna sip my water.
Absolutely. Take a sip. Because I just feel like if the government really gave a shit about sex trafficking or child pornography, I feel like they'd take cases like Woody Allen or Bryan Singer or even James Charles more seriously. Like,
Jesus.
to me, these predators are just walking around in plain sight. It's less like internet pervs, and I say perv in a loving way because I'm a sex worker
Yeah.
and I'm a perv. It's not us. It's the predators that should be watched, as far as I'm concerned. And it's sort of similar to people, in my mind at least, who are so adamant about abortion being illegal, but not giving a shit about children being separated from their families at the border. What do you think is the obsession with controlling people's bodies and genitals?
Oh God. I mean, we can go into that, can't we? Like, misogyny, white supremacy, capitalism at the very roots of it. But oh God, I mean, isn't that such a good question? Because I, and it's so interesting because that the distinction of like trafficking equals sex work, that's really new. Like, you can trace that back to like, and a lot of my grad work was like looking into this kind of as a researcher. But I think it was only the Clinton administration, and I forgot what bill it was. And I think the same year, where there was also a bill written by. Sorry, I'm totally on a busy street in LA, so you'll hear like honking and people screaming. But like, um, it was totally the mid '90s where trafficking became equatable to sex work, and where sex workers legally began being defined as unable to determine whether or not they are being abused. So there is it was the UN, by the way, like the UN came together and wrote a bill about preventing sex trafficking, I believe in the mid '90s. And Bill Clinton also had a separate bill that was in the same language. And it was about people who are, like, it is only the rights of the government to determine who is being abused. So sex workers do not have that right. And it's just very point blank. And in 2014, 2015, the UN was asked to clarify that. And they said it again. They were like, yeah, sex workers do not make the distinction of whether or not they are victim to sex trafficking. Like, that is up to us as like this body. So, I mean, so that's the fight, you know what I mean? So like, even when you're thinking about censorship, it's like these really bigger laws about trafficking at the end of the day that are kind of the heat of the battle,
Totally. And I think that the liabilities that these big corporations face, it's like making us it's making it more and more
Mhm.
impossible for artists like us to become deplatformed, which is not a word, but it kind of is. We're constantly getting deleted and banned from social media, and it's gotten to the point where you can't even type out the words men and women without like getting removed for hate speech. You can just say like
Oh,
I am a
Jesus.
woman and I'm proud, and that's hate speech now. What do you think we can do to convince people that we belong on these platforms just as much as everyone else? We're artists with strong opinions. Like what gives?
Yeah, what gives? I mean, have you encountered that a lot? Like, have you been like shadow banned, like deplat? I'm sure you have many, many, many friends who just like,
Well,
you
I
know,
started with a private account before I was public with sex work. I had a private
mm,
account that got deleted. And I wasn't even posting anything with nudity. It was just like foot stuff mostly, but it got
mm-hmm.
deleted. I get shadow banned a lot.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't even know. All my friends have gotten deleted. Um, I
yeah, very, yeah.
at what point do we just admit, like, does everybody admit that social media is biased? And like, what's the next step? Like, what platform do we jump to next? Like, it's so confusing and terrifying.
Because everyone's just being banned, and like, yeah, the censorship is just getting more and more severe. And so, like, what can we do? I mean, what can you do other than organize, than spread awareness? And but something that I've talked about this before. I really do think like trust and resiliency. Does that make sense? Because like if anything, like sex work will always survive, will always find a way. Even things like OnlyFans, like Instagram, Reddit advertising, that's so new. And I feel like there are just so many ways to establish base and to monetize that like even if I don't know, I don't want to sound so like naive, but it's like even if you are deplatformed, it's about like it's almost I feel like for me because I talk to a lot of people about it, it's almost like as if like expecting you will be and not being like in a fear mindset, but in an organizing mindset and thinking about what are the ways you can further advertise. Does that mean building your own website? Does that mean having a strictly SFW, like safe for work account where you have a different base? Um, and I think it's spreading awareness because a lot of people just do not know. A lot of people don't even know what Section 230 really is.
A lot of people
Um,
don't know what shadow banning or even hate speech. They don't like they just because they're not posting the stuff that we get deleted for, but like they don't have
yeah.
no idea. I guess more so in this question, you're right about organization and activism. I guess in a perfect world, like, would you prefer that we exist on a safer work platform altogether, or do you think we need our own platform? Like, in a perfect world for you, what would you want?
Yes, that is a great question. Should we exist on our own? I mean, because that really is really making me think about like what is the sex worker like what are the sex worker created sex worker safe platforms? I mean, so this is so interesting because I don't think there exists a singular platform that has been created by and for sex workers in a way that is so mainstream and accessible or has like the name branding. I think there's like, if anything, like Just for Fans comes very close to that for me, at least I think. I might be wrong. But there's a lot of what is the safe platform for us to exist on? And even on OnlyFans, there's a lot of and so something that I don't know how to segue into this topic, but something that really I used to I used to really be of the view that like, okay, well, okay, I'm so sorry about the dogs. That doesn't really help.
Listen, Fiona Apple released an album with dogs barking. You can exist and talk about this with dogs barking.
Yes.
Please
But
feel
like
free.
but there's a lot of debate like is OnlyFans exploitative? Is it deliberately kicking people off? Is it like deliberately banning people? Is it seizing people's money? It's like where's the safety?
I think
And
it is. I think it is racist and sexist and all the things. And I
oh
will
yeah.
prove it. I will. One of these days, I will prove it. Mark my
Oh
words.
no. I mean, even just like tangentially with the people who I know and like seeing the difference in who is like flagged for stuff, um, especially like in terms of following. But something that I also realized is that like And I don't know if you know Ashley Lake, but she is a trans sex worker, I think based in New York, who has like a private Twitter account, but who writes and organizes a lot about this and does a lot of educational work in terms of platforming. And her point of view, and I've come to really agree with this, is that actually the reason for the inconsistency of platforms is because the platforms themselves are dealing with getting shut down by like Visa, by PayPal, by MasterCards. So by MasterCard. So sometimes there is a misconception. I mean, it's tough to know because there's so little transparency. But something that I really have been researching is like, is OF like seizing funds? And it's like, well, whether or not they are, and there is, I mean, you can debate, people have different experiences, but the fact of the matter is that OnlyFans is also getting shuttered by like Visa, by even like Pornhub was completely shuttered by like these like mainstream credit companies, credit corporations. You can no longer be paid through credit card, I think, through Pornhub. So that changed, or there are more stringent ways to go about doing it, but it's not as simple as it used to be. So what we're seeing right now is this very corporate closing in on not just sex work, but anything financially associated with sex work is getting shuttered. So it's almost two things are happening, which is the censorship and the access to any form of transaction is being blocked. And a lot of people don't see this happening. And so I think it's also telling people the importance of supporting sex workers, sexual artists, models, people who do intimate work in any sort of way. I think it's so important to just talk to the people you know and to just tell them, like, buy your porn, subscribe to people, form those relationships, like pay them privately. Because it's also, for me, it's so much community for me. And we tend to think of sex workers as not in our immediate field or vicinity, but that's not the case. Like, as I said before, like, I think 1 in 4 drag queens, drag artists are in sexual labor of some sort, whether it be massage, through OnlyFans, through like full service in person, through, um, through stripping, through burlesque, like stuff like that. So that's my big rant that will probably have to be edited down because of the dogs that were barking. But
I mean, maybe not.
Mm.
I love that rant. I think a lot of like influencers and social media models are also low key sex workers, and they don't
Yes.
talk about it, but they totally are.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. That's the thing. It's everywhere, and so many people that you know are sex workers, and they're obviously private about it, but like it's so crazy how expansive this community, like you said, is. It's everywhere. It's just getting people to understand and know what's happening. And I think that everyone likes to keep this on the DL. Like, there's such a stigma behind it still. Um,
Hmm.
has this level of virality, that's not a word, helped grow your audience with your TikTok and your
Oh
business? Or are you
gosh.
dealing with
Great,
the same sexist, racist shit as usual? Like,
great question. I mean, I didn't even go like that viral. It was just like 2 TikToks, but like I mean, it had an effect because I do remember people just saying, "Hey, I stumbled upon you today." Like just my friends being like, "Whoa, I saw you!" Like just randomly, and I was like, "Whoa!" But for me, in terms of like being an artist, I had always been so, because for me, like I am an educator. Like I started in like an ethnic studies education, like an anti-racist education. That really is like my background. Like my first job was like in that, like as an assistant, as like a teacher. So for me as an artist, I had always been like, yeah, I want to have a bigger platform. And I feel like I'm making art that deserves a bigger platform, even if I'm not that prolific, even if like my makeup isn't the best, even if I'm not the most booked person. Like I was this thing that was like, I feel like I deserve a little bit more. So I'm just gonna keep honing in on it. But it was last year and I was just so frustrated. And then, I'd moved to LA. I was like, I dropped out of grad school. So even if I'm talking about my grad work, that shit is not finished. So, but like, and then I realized that like, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about that I feel like I can't talk about. And that's harming me, like my authenticity. It's harming my art. And so from this point on, and this is like last December, I wrote my manifestation and I was just like, I'm just going to be myself and see what happens. And I mean, you know how to do that because you've done that so successfully, but like,
it's
and that's the
hard.
hardest thing for,
It's
yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah,
scary.
and it's draining, you know?
Yes.
And for you, like, the amount of energy that goes into that and the amount of like self-exploration. But that's really when you start to just resonate with people. And so I was like, like my work, my life is in this. I feel like I can't ever talk about it because what if people judge me? And I was like, I don't care. Like this thing is happening and it's a long, 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 long trend. Because I was also around for Sesta Fosta and that was some bullshit. Like I'll tell you, you know. And then like I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna make a series of instructional videos, like, and see if it hits. Yeah, and it did, and it sparked a lot of conversation. And I wasn't the most accurate, so I had to clarify, go back and clarify, but it did help with my reach, and it allowed me to really step into just being more of myself. And now my platform, as small as it is, has really um, I do talk to strangers every day, and I talk to people about having BPD, about being in sex work, about being Asian, like POC, being non binary, being trans, doing drag. And so it's before becoming an advocate, I had always been an advocate in the classroom, but like never like online. And since deciding to do that intentionally, it just sparked a lot of change. And so now I do my tarot business and that's kind of what I want to do is help people discover how to be authentic and how to just release the blockage, you know what I mean? And that's always one of the stories I go to is like when you just stop caring and when you just start posting and treating it like your diary, then it just gets easy. And so I see that in your stuff too. So that's why I was grateful to be able to talk to you today.
Once again, I'm so grateful that you're here educating all of us on these topics. Let's dive into something a little bit more fun because I want to talk about your art
Yes.
because your drag is amazing. I love the kabuki makeup that you've been doing. It's
So nice
so
of you, yeah.
beautiful. But your art involves a lot of spirituality and usually with tarot or astrology. How do you convince a non-believer such as myself to open their heart to like the zodiac? And like I love tarot card readings, but I'm not like a huge believer. I just love doing it for fun. How do you like indoctrinate someone like me?
So this is the question. Isn't this the question? Because oh my god, I had brunch with one of my best friends on Sunday, and he works like on set on like a TV show in Burbank, and we've been best friends for like years, like a decade, and then out of nowhere he's just like, so like, are you buying the shit you're selling? And I was like, you motherfucker, like why would you like phrase it that way? But that's my best friend, and so, but I explained it to him. I was like, it's just racism. Like at the end of the day, because it's like, with whiteness, science as rationality has so many roots in like, this is the way you view the world. And like our innate ways of knowing that are based on emotion, on the stars, on ancestors, on family get wiped away. And so I was like, my only job is to just be smart and be nice and use my intuition because I like to connect with people and just talk to people about their problems. And that's how I explained it to him. I was like, that is my only job. And I even told him like half of my clients are not spiritual. They're like really heavy earth signs who like, I don't know, work for like Facebook and they're kind of just like, they don't know anything. But they know they want to talk to someone who can give them a different perspective when they feel stuck. And that's all it really is, if you're stuck, talk to someone. It could be a therapist, it could be a tarot reader, it could be a psychic, it could be a drag queen, it could be a sex worker even. Like even sex workers are able to do that for people, But we all have our different modalities of helping people heal. And some of us do it through like our porn, some of us do it through our arts, through our drag. I happen to do it through all three of those things, but like that's just how I phrase it. Cause yeah, there's a lot of
I guess.
and I used to be just, oh yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I guess my disbelief sort of comes from like more of a place of trauma that I've experienced, and like
Yeah.
if there were a god or gods or whoever's out there, why would they let all these terrible things happen to so many people? And that's sort of where mine comes from.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I do understand like those science-based people who are just like, no, facts are facts.
That's yeah.
It's-
So you have an interesting relationship to it because it's like, how can you trust? Because it's about trust, and it's like, I just, bad things happen and people are hurt. And even if you don't believe in a higher force, it is just something to accept. And I feel like your only power is, are you transmuting that into lessons? Like that is all you can do, because you can be guaranteed trauma will happen on the daily. And it's happening on the daily with the shootings, you know what I mean? With the violence against women, against Asian women, against trans people, against black people. But it's, are you forming community in response to it? And are you healing in response to it? That is all you can control. But like, so it's always up to you, because it's like, if you have a, but for me it's like, I mean, I don't necessarily just believe in like a god, but I do believe in like accessing stuff that my ancestors and family have known, and that, so there's different ways of higher power. It's not just God. And like, and I have a very strange relationship to God as well, because I'm kind of just like, I pray to many gods depending on my libido and who I am spiritually attracted to in the moment.
Love that.
But like, yeah, but for me, it's like, is there just something you trust? That is, it could be your family, it could be your community, it could be spirit, but are you practicing trust in something? And that is all you can control. And if you have to go hermit mode and be reclusive and just repair, then, I respect that as well. But thank you for opening up about that.
Yeah. I do love tarot. I've always been very drawn to it. Astrology is not really my thing, but I've always been into tarot. And I had like several decks growing up. And when I was young, I was like, I'm a witch and all that. And like, I'm like very into that stuff. How did you get started reading tarot cards? And can you talk a little bit about your business? And like, you do tarot card readings online for people, right?
Yes, I've been reading through Zoom with just about everybody.
Amazing.
So it started when I was 12, and my mom worked like 3 jobs. So she would drop us off at the Barnes and Noble, and I would just shoplift. And tarot decks were like the prettiest thing for my little gay eyes, was like, so I would just like steal the shit. And now I buy them or ask for people to donate. But like, so that's how it started. And then I was growing up, I was so like scientific rational, and I was like, oh, it's just psychological. Like, I was like, oh, I'm just applying the subconscious, like Carl Jung would, you know what I mean? Like Freud, like, and then so I had that relationship for so long, and then I entered ethnic studies. Well, I entered theater, and then that kind of led me to social justice. So in college, I started becoming more and more of an activist, and then that led me into art. But even then, it was just so cerebral. It was like, fuck, like I need to tell stories, because like, they're being erased. So I'm gonna just tell stories and make images that tell these stories and create characters that build this universe. And then there was just the past year so many blockages in my life and my mental health, because I do live with borderline personality disorder. So like emotional regulation, if I'm in relapse, can be hard for me. If I'm not in relapse, I live a very normal life. Like, you would never know. I never knew for so many years. All my relationships were just very fine. And then COVID happened, and then all this kind of tower moment, like lots of explosion in confusion and in turmoil. And then I was kind of like, I slowly realized things are not moving forward, because it's all stuck in here, like in my head. If this is just audio, this is podcast, right?
Yeah, it's both.
So I'm in full drag. So for the audience, they know I'm fully in drag, right?
You look gorge.
Thank you. Do you like my nails?
Yes, they're so long, so pretty.
Yeah, they're like, there are no nails, but but like, and then I realized like the blockages with career, with money, with school, it's because everything is so in the brain, and I'm not putting in the heart, and I'm not being myself, and I'm just so stuck. And once I realized that, and I started doing the journaling, going back to therapy, writing the manifestations, reading just poems, like exposing myself to heart-based stuff again, that is when I was, the TikToks happened. I became more vocal. I started making more friends, and the art changed as well, because I used to be so like, I need to churn out really big, impressive stuff to, have my aesthetic, because I'm not bookable if I don't have an aesthetic. And then I realized I just need to speak to people and do what's within my means and what challenges me. And then I started to experiment, and then the new makeup happened, and the way I did my face changed, the way I performed changed, just the way I talk to people changed. So if there's advice I have for people listening, it's always to just, if you're stuck, it's because you're not trusting, can I move from here? The heart, can I risk from here? And so for you and for audience and for Chase, who I just realized is here with us. Hi Chase. Is like, what is the risk you can take that'll move you in that direction? And it's so funny because a lot of my friends have the stability that I would like to have, and I have kind of the heart-based chaos that they could benefit from. And so like it's recognizing those signs and just trusting. And so, so I'm thankful for you asking those questions
Good. I'm
because
glad.
yeah.
I want to say, like, the thing about your TikToks, I think that really drew people in was you're so articulate about everything. And I feel like you said all of the things that we all want to say, but we're all so angry that we scream these things and then they fall on deaf ears because people are like, I don't respond well to anger. So I think your things were just like, oh, this is just information that is being told in a way that is palatable to me. And I think that's why it struck a chord with so many people and went viral.
Yes. It was definitely targeted to just the random TikToker. Like that's who I was doing it for. Because my intention was just to kind of mobilize. And so how do I mobilize? Well, even if it's about rights and censorship, I still kind of have to be like, your porn is gonna disappear. Like, you know what I mean? Because like that is like the entry level, like layperson's like entrance into like sex worker advocacy. It's like, wait, the shit I enjoy will disappear. And then some people, there was so much hate with that, and a lot of people were just like, fuck you, you're like a disgusting like tranny fag, you know what I mean? And then it's just like, and then I was like, well, I mean, you're still jacking off to like browsers or whatever the fuck, like the straight man who like found it, like, so your enjoyment disappears as well. It's so, because people think like, oh, they can just enjoy sexual pleasure and not invest in it, but it's like, every time you watch a video, you're giving people ad revenue. Like, who do you think you are? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And even if you comment hate, and I'm sure you get it all the time, like you're adding to the algorithm for me because you're adding engagement. Because Instagram is reading that comment, even if it's spiteful, as probably engagement, which is right. So you're adding to my power. So I used to respond to all the hate, and then I realized, no, like, just let them give me the revenue. Like, just let them increase the algorithm's attention to the comments. Like, just let it flow in and just don't respond to the ones that suck and block people. So
Yes. To dive into something a little bit more serious, last year around this time, we were dealing with the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement finally taking off in the way that it has been trying to for years and years. But this year, we're dealing with a different yet equally horrific hate crime against Asian women and the Stop Asian Hate movement. Let's talk a little bit about the fetishization of Asian women in pornography. And
yeah.
now, this is your time. This is your platform right now. Go off, say whatever you'd like to say, please.
Oh gosh. I mean, first off, thank you for bringing it up. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but like, I mean, what is there to say? Like, I did a number like a week ago for my friend's show, which is called Send Nudes, and it's like this super cool POC Asian American drag show. It's trans inclusive in LA, so it's open to all, and it's a wonderful space. So I highly recommend you follow them. Send Nudes Party on Instagram. But a lot of that number was like, what can I say? And it was just me in ghost geisha, like embracing stereotype get up, and a film playing behind me. And then eventually at the end, like I'm on the film that's projecting on me. It's like, oh, let me control my own representation. But and at the end, I'm not even lip syncing to it. So it's like this very metaphorical kind of thing of like the screen I'm lip syncing on, but in front of you, I'm not talking. And so it was this thing that's like, we're all just so tired. And for me, like, I mean, I've encountered violence in my sex work as well, like in person. And I'm sure a lot of people have. And it's protecting our most vulnerable because a lot of, and it's so funny because I was talking to a client today about a lot of Asian Americanness, Asian diasporicness is we're so tangentially just connected to sex work because that's just kind of how we've been treated in this global economy. It's like trafficked, um, forced into sex labor, sex slavery historically, and even the type of labor that Asian women do, like nursing, that they're known to do or like pigeonholed into doing, like education, caretaking in medical, in positions like as nurses in the Filipino community, caretakers in the Filipino community is so intimate. And that to me it is a type of intimate labor because it's like it is a type of care, intimate care that these women or people are expected to provide because of their race and gender. And so it's like, yeah, thank you for bridging the gap because it's like we're all just so angry and it's just really sad because it's like that could have been anyone's mom. And it wasn't even just Asian women who were killed, but the attack. And for them, for the police force to say like it wasn't racially motivated and it wasn't like if any and it's just like what are you talking
That is
about? Like
such bullshit. It's so
yeah,
transparent.
exactly. And so it's like but I never want to so the fetishization is just it's violence and it's like let's just be aware of it. But at the same time, I want to point out there is a big trove of women of color porn scholars who are like, okay, so here's the thing. A lot of politics can get it in the wrong direction, if that makes sense. A lot of politics can be like, fetishization is bad, so sexualization is bad, so sex work is bad, so women in sex work is bad. All women should never be in sex work. All Asian women should never be in sex work. They're exploiting themselves, and then it becomes an anti-sex work politics. You know what I mean? Which is
I didn't even
I
think about
encounter
that.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In POC spheres. But there's a lot of women of color, porn scholars, sex workers, porn stars who are kind of just like, let sex work be the agency. Like, let it be. Because even then, there was just so much like, oh my God, we don't want to mistakenly call these women sex workers because what if they weren't? Then that would be bad. Then we're calling them sex workers just because they're Asian. And it's so like, that's just respectability politics. It's like, so what if they were? So what if they weren't? They were targeted because of their association with it, regardless. So even if that wasn't what they were doing, the violence was because that's how they're perceived. And we should still be advocating along the most vulnerable, who are Asian, trans, migrants, sex workers. So it's like for people to say like, let's not call them that because we don't know. Well, like hands off, we don't know, is kind of like you're missing the point, which is that we should be organizing for the most vulnerable, not demarcating, oh, they weren't that. Because that's just like hush hush, like stigmatizing even more. So that was a big thing on Asian Twitter for a minute. It's like, let's not call these women prostitutes. Well, like, fuck, prostitutes are being murdered every day. Like, who gives a fuck who's being called a prostitute or not? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just what I think. So
I wanted to join into that conversation, but it wasn't my place. I just listened.
yeah.
But there was that part of me that was just like, so what's wrong with being a prostitute? What's wrong with being a sex worker? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that part of it made me angry too. But
it's that racialization, like the model minority, like we have to be seen as pristine because that'll put us above anti-blackness, like we're safer, so we have to be clean, we have to be we came here the right way, like we are hard workers, we're family. It's that kind of that very racist, very nationalist, very anti-black kind of model minority sentiment that drives like the imageness of it. And I think in the Asian community there is a big unwillingness to embrace intimate labor and sex work, which again to me is crazy because it's like our collective history, the way the labor is exploited under global capitalism it's intimate labor. Like we're serving people in their houses, at the hospitals, in the nursing homes, and the massage parlors, in the schools, on the bus. I mean, we're not like sucking dick on the bus, but driving the bus is what I thought about. I mean, I have ADHD, I don't know, but thank you for making the space to talk about it but I really wanted to affirm that like there's a lot of grassroots organizing and there's a lot of efforts to bridge that gap and to organize and to support migrant women and sex worker orgs happening right now, which is very beautiful. So I don't know if you want me to segue into that.
Please do. Talk about where we can
Yeah.
donate, where we can help, where we can join, all of it.
Well, I think support all sex workers, support all Asian artists, support all Asian intimate artists, all POC. Donate to your art, buy your porn, just send a cash tip on Venmo to your favorite sexy person. It's always appreciated. And go see art, see drag, see POC drag shows, see Send Nudes, which is my friend's show. I also do a show that's on hiatus on just for a little bit. It's called XOXO, the show on Instagram, and that's a BIPOC showcase. And on April 18th, so I don't know when this is coming out, but on April 18th, there's a big coalition of Asian drag and sex worker orgs that are doing a long show online that is a fundraiser for Red Canary Song. And Red Canary Song is it's New York City based. It's an Asian migrant women and sex worker organization. So very helping, very for the people who were targeted because of violence recently. And we're doing this big drag trans show on April 18th. And there will be flyers. And it's organized by, there's a bunch of orgs. There's Sacred Wounds in New York City, Send Nudes in LA, XOXO in LA, San Francisco, Q&A, which is Queer and Asian. I hope I'm getting everyone's names right because these are my friends and colleagues. So I don't want to embarrass myself. The Other Women. And so it's just this really beautiful coalition. So you can go to that. It's on April 18th. If you go on my Instagram, which is Lea_Salonganisa, the flyer will be posted by this Friday. And oh God, and then really donate to. There's so much places to donate. There's St. James Infirmary. There's God, I don't know what / or / which is it's an online org to help people organize as digital sex workers, have digital rights. I'll send that to you because I'm not getting their name right, but I think it's / and then
Perfect. We'll put all this information in the description, in the bios, all of it.
And book a tarot reading with me,
Yes.
And I have a tarot Instagram, which is Ancestral Miracle on Instagram, which is very new, but I'm posting kind of my journey on there, and so I invite people to follow that page as well.
That is dope. I need to book a reading with you ASAP.
Of course, yeah.
Before we sign off, I had a couple fan questions come in, and maybe we can just do 2.
Let's do it. I forgot about this portion. I was so excited for this portion.
I know. There are some good questions too. Someone asked, self-image. I find it so hard to maintain a positive image of myself, and it's extremely empowering to see fellow women embracing themselves as a whole. What have you struggled with self-image wise, and what helps?
Oh God. Should you go first or should I go first?
I mean, I could say I've always struggled with self-image, and sex work was the one thing that helped build my confidence. People admiring and appreciating my body when I didn't. And I know it's, the politically correct thing to say is you shouldn't give a shit what other people think about you. It should start within, the self-love. But the truth is it started on the outside and I had to work my way in.
Oh my God, that is so beautiful. It starts on the outside. Yeah, in DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, there's like this concept, like you can create emotion, you can create how you feel about yourself. Like you're not just subject to how you feel about yourself, you can create how you feel about yourself. So like for me, I mean, I have like body dysmorphia, and I've struggled with like eating disorders my life. Even like I have like non-binary dysmorphia, which I'm not. At various points, I'm happy or not happy with how I look. Just, that I experienced that. But I think for this person and for anyone who relates, like, what is the one thing that you sort of like about yourself? It could be like, I have plump lips. My eyes are symmetrical. I like the brownness of my eyes. My eyebrows are okay. Like, I have a nice blush. I'm looking at your face. Bree, it's like, oh, you have a nice like blush like to your cheeks. So like not like these cheeks, you know what I mean? Like up above, but like
my down low cheeks are pretty good too.
Yeah. But like just every day, just think about that. And then if that's a small thing to cultivate, then that is your channel, to emphasize. And then who knows, maybe in a week you'll see another thing that you like. It could be multiple things, but like I think there is no such thing as undesirability. And I think because of porn, there's a niche for everything. Absolutely everything. I firmly believe there is a fetish, there is a niche, there's an audience for anything. And you will see it if you work with sex workers. And so, like, trust that you have an audience. It might not be the everyone's audience, but you have an audience. Like, you have people who, yeah. So I tell people all the time, what is the one thing? And that's your audience. Like, if it's, you have nice eyes, there's so many people who like who see that about you. So just trust, you know what I mean?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Another question, I really like this one. How would you change sex ed to be better informed about sex work, and what is fundamentally misunderstood?
Oh my gosh, how would we change sex ed to be?
It needs to change from the ground up. We need to start over from
Yeah.
scratch. Let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. I think, well, first off, including narratives and stories and sex work as an option for people, not as just like survival crisis mode. Like, not to ignore those stories, but like, sex as joy. That's just where it comes down to. Like, are you teaching kids that their body is a source of joy and transformation and power? Or is it like abstinence, like, don't get pregnant, don't do that, be aware of that? Like, it's the conversation we have about sex and the body is so like Puritan, capitalist, white supremacist, and it's like that's how it should change, and it should change from like in every type of class, like encouraging kids to love themselves and love their bodies. And I don't know if this is like so hippie babbling, but like that's just what I think. Like,
I feel the same way. I do too. I think
Yeah.
I think something that needs to change about sex ed is it needs to involve queerness, because it doesn't at
Yes.
all. There's no queer sex education. I'm bisexual or pan, and when
Exactly.
I was growing up, the reason I didn't pursue women earlier is because I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing, and that was literally the reason. Otherwise, I would have been out way sooner. Everything would have been more open, but it wasn't like that. And I think I think sex ed needs to be inclusive, first of all. And then sex work is, I don't know if it's necessarily a part of like the curriculum, especially in like middle school. You're not talking about
Why not
becoming a sex
Why
worker.
not tell the? I'm just kidding.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
if I ran a middle school, sure. But in the real world,
Same.
and not my fantasy land,
I
obviously,
agree.
I don't necessarily, I definitely think that my body, my choice should be taught. And that is a big part of sex work. There are
Yeah.
definitely umbrellas of sex work that could be part of a sex ed curriculum.
That is a good way to phrase their umbrellas. So yeah, incorporating queerness, transness, joy.
Yeah.
My body, my choice, power and pleasure.
Power and
you know.
pleasure need to be
Yeah.
taught, especially the pleasure part, because for women especially, we are not taught about our pleasure. We are just taught about reproduction, and that's it.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, that.
Thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you.
We are so lucky that we had an amazing educator come on and share all these amazing
go.
details. Obviously, people can find you on social media at Lea
Yeah.
Salonganisa.
Mhm.
And your tarot card business, hopefully it really takes off.
Thank you.
Just feel free to shout out anyone else you may have missed. Red Canary song was one we talked about earlier.
Red Canary song, Send Nudes Party, XOXO the show. Oh my god, my brain is like fried, but
That's
that's
okay.
literally all I can think about.
I can't wait to
James
come
Infirmary.
I can't wait to see you do drag live one of these days. Now that you're
Are
in
you in
LA.
LA?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I was like, what is your time zone? I was like, okay, she's in LA.
Now that I know you're in
So-
LA, I have to come see you perform, obviously.
Of course. Yeah, I would love to meet you in person. I'm so grateful to be part of the pod, friend of the
Yay.
pod. And I love your platform and I love what you do. And so it's such an honor. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. I hope you like the show. Stay tuned for next week, and we'll see you next time.